In this video, I want to talk to you a little bit about a medical term called a patent foramen ovale, and also known as a PFO, and how that pertains to my stroke survival story. Hey, my name is Brandon. If you're new here, I used to be an electrical engineer and I was kicked out of the rat race, turned into a full time real estate investor and broker. And my wife and I, we've done over 150 flips, as well as we also have taken a dilapidated barn that we purchased for $30,000 and turned that into a multiple six-figure profit, which we rolled into a dilapidated warehouse, which we converted into an indoor climate controlled self-storage facility. I love learning about personal development. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you a little bit. If you have already caught up on my stroke survival story, if not, I'll put a link in the show notes underneath this, as well as I've talked a little bit about the symptoms of a stroke, as well as the anxiety that I ended up having subsequently after I had it. In today's video, I want to talk specifically about what's called a PFO. So you see, everybody's born whenever they're in their mother's womb, and there's a hole in the heart that basically allows blood to transfer between the left and right atrium, the upper chambers of the heart, and that prevents blood from flowing into the baby's lungs. I believe that's how I understand it. And typically, when you're born and you start to breathe air, that hole typically automatically closes. But in a percentage of the population, and the statistic varies, I've seen figures like as low as 15%. I've seen it as high as 30, 35%. But let's say it's about 25 to 30% of the population. In about 25 to 30% of that population of the population, that hole remains open, and normally it's not a big deal. The problem arises whenever you end up having a so usually whenever the blood is going to go in and go through your right atrium, it ends up going out to your body, and the danger lies, or I'm sorry, whenever it's coming back in, the danger lies whenever that hole, whenever the blood, if there's like a protein or a platelet or a clot or something, where it's able to go from your right atrium, shoot through the hole and shortcut everything, and then go into your left atrium, it then has a direct path where it's able to go. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not good even if it's going to go to your lungs or whatever and cause an embolism. But in many cases, you'd probably rather have an embolism than a stroke. So it might not always be a great case scenario either way, but so the PFO, a patent foramen ovale, it's this hole. And whenever I had my stroke, at first they had recommended that I simply go on aspirin. And if I have another stroke, they would put me on a blood thinner. And then if I have another stroke, that I would have this PFO, that hole in my heart, be looked at, because essentially what I had, they called it a cryptogenic stroke, where they really didn't know what caused my stroke. But what they do know is that my blood might have been a little sticky, the proteins might have been a little thicker, and it caused that clot essentially to probably more than likely flow through that PFO and cause my stroke. Now, that didn't sit very well with my wife. That we kind of knew what the solution might be, and as it turns out, we had gone to a hematologist, and the hematologist is actually the one who had seen some updated study materials. I believe it was in the New England Journal of Medicine, where they had talked about the PFO closures and the statistics that showed where it was more beneficial in the long term to go ahead and they call it an occluder. And basically, and I guess I kind of move into now how the procedure goes. So long story short, we ended up opting to have the PFO closed. I rather would have taken a chance on having that closed up and not having to go through a stroke ever again because of that. Is ultimately what we ended up deciding, and I'm glad we did. I live a completely normal, active life right now, and I don't have to really worry that that's going to happen again. But the procedure itself, just to kind of talk to you a little bit about how that looked, it was very, very simple. I went in for the procedure. At least whenever I had it done, they went in through my groin. I believe it was through a vein, and they were able to come in then through like the right atrium, and they have basically it's this long device that kind of so yeah, they're going to shave you up down in your groin area, then they're going to make an incision and they're going to insert the catheter. It's essentially a catheter, a heart catheterization, but what they're able to do is the device is able to push the occluder. They put it through the hole in your heart, and then it kind of opens it up and fans out, and then they're able to kind of pull it out a little bit, and then they're able to expand the other part, and then those two areas of the occluder kind of tighten up on that hole over top of that, and then the blood will, I guess, like it'll end up clotting over top of that, and it'll end up like smoothing everything out. And it's a very simple procedure. It was a very quick recovery from that, and you're knocked out whenever you go through it. So it's a very easy process. And I don't know if if this is something that you or a loved one is maybe considering is having the procedure done. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the video below. But it definitely gave me a lot higher degree of confidence that I was not going to have a subsequent stroke. And I know that there's other people who have had them completed as well at this point. I have a really close friend who, very similar, but he didn't have any stroke symptoms, but he had a stroke. He had some stroke symptoms, but they were a little bit different. And he ended up having a PFO. They ended up doing a closure for him, and he's been back active as he's ever been. So if you've not already subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button, give the video a thumbs up and like it. And again, if you have any comments or questions, just leave them down below the video and I'll get back to you. Thanks a lot.